Well, the time will also ask for the various things. You can explain the results after. Need not. It's 30 on one mark. So just in case somebody is listening on the internet, I guess we'll wait for another 5 minutes to have more than one participant. So, oh well, that's the assignment. Thank you. But I guess if there's nobody new, that could be also continue the chat as well. Ah, that's going to be tricky. So we are still missing an ID, but anyway, let's start. So this is the RADEXT working group session. My name is Stefan Winter, working group chair. This is Lionel Laurent, the co-chair. And we have a pretty light agenda for today. Hey, now we do have an ID.
Yes, sorry, I am late.
No problem at all. So yeah, first, it's already Wednesday, so you've probably seen this. There is a note well. Please note well the note well. And then we have a very light agenda. We have a volunteer for the minute taking. That's Lionel. We don't need a JavaScript because there is nobody on MeetTech or on Java. I think the agenda is pretty okay, unless somebody wants to add something. Okay, then we can take a short look about what we did in the last couple of months. And we have a discussion about exactly one active working group draft. There's a couple of individual drafts waiting for adoption / waiting for discussion on what to do with them, which we'll talk about near the end. And then we have an incredible amount of time to talk about the topic called the future of RADEXT. And considering the fact that there are 2 chairs and 3 people in the room, one of which an AD, probably shows where it's going to head. So let's first start with the overview of what happened. We didn't meet at IETF. We didn't meet at IETF 98, so these are the changes from IETF 97. We published 2 RFCs, the radius extensions for IP port configuration and reporting, RFC 8045, and data types and radios 8044. For a change, we have nothing in the editor queue, nothing in IETF last call, nothing in IEST processing. We have 1 document currently still active, awaiting the Shepard write-up. That is the COA proxying from Anna de Kock and Juni Kohonen. Meanwhile, the Shepard is assigned. It's me. I've reviewed the document. It's not quite ready to go anywhere, so I've asked the authors for a new revision, and that is coming up ideally just after the cutoff. We have nothing in working group last call. There is 1 working group item which is in principle in progress. That's mine on the correct use of the EAP response identity field. To be honest, not many people asked me about it. Some were even opposed to trying out multiple EAP identities. So actually, I'm prepared to drop this one. The benefits are small. If you write an EAP supplicant, there is some advice in there. You might want to read it, but it's the kind of document which is also perfectly fine as an expired draft to point to and say, look, there is some advice in there, and that's it. Proposals for new work. We had the idea to move radius TLS from the current experimental status to standard track, which is work by Jim Shard. I've seen him around here earlier today. We don't have a draft yet. We've had some conceptual discussion. Okay. And that discussion was, I think, about a year ago. So I see this work is also pretty much stalled. It would be a shame to drop that one because radius TLS is being used. People are asking about it. They're asking why is it experimental. So it would really be good to get this one done. But, well, somebody has to do the work and has to volunteer. So the other 2 things which are currently being actively discussed in the working group are the radius extended identifier attribute from Enke Chen and Mr. Shen. We have an O1 draft. It's one of 2 approaches to get this done. So we'll discuss this today. Actually, the authors cannot make it to the meeting. So they asked me to run the slides, and I guess I'll do that. And then we can discuss about it, despite me not knowing much about it. The second approach to the same problem is a draft from Anna de Kock, who has also submitted an O2 revision. So these 2 will be treated as one block. Lastly, Alan would like to remind about the proxy considerations document he is intending to write. So this is just a reminder in case somebody's interested. Let's see if we find lots of interested people. And that's basically all we have on our radar. Specifically, the LoRaWAN people were here once. They seemed interested. It was pretty much straightforward radius-related work, but they're not coming anymore, so I've dropped this one off the radar. Okay, that's it for document overview. You see we have only very few things to do. So the one thing I did was trying to do the Shepard write-up for the COA proxy document. This had gone through working group last call, I think a couple of times, until nobody had any issues anymore. So I thought now is the time to actually get it done. It actually reads nicely, so I'm quite happy with the document. But for some reason, please come on in. For some reason, okay. And I thought we had a new customer. So yeah, but as I read the document, despite several working group last calls, the working draft called scrutiny must have missed that there was a section which had one word as a content, which is stuff. And for some reason, I thought this probably doesn't pass quality assurance. So this draft has to go through another rev. The thing is, if a draft gets that far with this word stuff as content, can we really say we have working group process here? I mean, many people are supposed to read a document, and at least one of them should realize, hey, there's a chapter missing. This is the first hint that this is not a very healthy working group, to be honest. So let's see about the last agenda item, the future of RADEXT, what to do about it. Right, so the next thing to actually discuss then is the two approaches on what to do about the radius limitation that you can only have 256 packets in flight between a client and a server simultaneously, which is not an issue for small deployments, but which is an issue for large deployments. We currently have two drafts talking about that. So let me first bring up one of those. Nope, that's not the one I meant. This is draft Chen RADEXT identifier attributes 01. So this actually had a longer history. So the authors tried a more holistic approach, which basically rewrote the entire radius header and fixed many things in the process. This had some allergies in the people on the list. So they have now shrunken their proposal to define one new attribute for the extended ID. All changes to the packet header are gone. So this is now still a standard radius packet. The idea is that there is an extra attribute in the packet. So despite the identifier, you also have a new attribute, which gives you another space to identify a packet. Of course, the issue with that is that both the sending side has to edit and the receiving side has to understand and act upon it. So this is something to signal. And yeah, there's basically some signaling messaging in the status server message here. So the attribute itself is pretty straightforward. The status server can be used to negotiate whether or not a given server actually supports and understands this incoming attribute. And that basically is it. This has been tried out. People have written code for that. Yeah, so there is a patch to free radius. Things actually work. That's pretty okay. Of course, the capability discovery is something that radius never had, and we are backporting it every single time we want to get something new done in radius. And yeah, I guess it kind of works. I see here that it's about 190 lines of code in C, so it's not the big change that rewriting the radius packet header would be. It's much more gentle. So that's probably okay. The authors say it's a simple proposal and simple implementation. Only few code changes at a small place. Identifier management can be trivial. You can simply use a monotonically increasing counter. And there is a large benefit. It removes a long-standing protocol limitation. I think that's all. So people say the spec is stable. It is backward compatible because you use status server to negotiate this. No changes to the packet header and no change to overloading of existing fields. And the authors request RADEXT working group adoption. So anybody has any opinion on that?
Brian Wise, Cisco, so I'm a little bit, I guess, I maybe have an opinion because I'm worked for the same company's authors, but I really haven't been following their work. I will just say, having watched this, going from what they had to this very simple attribute extension seems very reasonable, and if it solves the problem, then we should do it.
Yeah, I mean, the group found very harsh words in the first approach, so this one is actually a lot better, definitely. It's also not groundbreaking. Personally, I know that the Radiator people have this since a decade or something. So they have an extended VSA attribute just for extended tracking. They don't have the status server negotiation, but even then things seem to work because they get their VSA back. So yeah, it's something you can do.
How close would this be to final?
Well, considering it's rather straightforward, I guess it wouldn't take much to finalize it.
Okay. Yeah. And how many people would be willing to read the draft? One. Either of you, will you read the draft?
Huh?
The chairs, I have to. Would you be able to read the simple draft? No. Thank you. Okay.
I guess we should ask this in the mailing list as well. I mean, there are more people on there.
Yeah, definitely. But it seems like it makes sense if it's simple, straightforward, and it's enough of an improvement to the protocol. I'm just, the room size like this, it's very important to get a few people at least to agree. To read it.
Yeah, okay. So since there's nobody on MeetEcho, particularly not Alan de Kock, who wrote the next slide deck, I guess I'm not going to read all of his slide deck in all the details because it's like 15 or 20 pages, 16. The issue is that we have the second proposal from Alan de Kock, which addresses the same problem in a similar way. So in the end, we're ending up in a beauty contest between the two. And that's surprising. The approach is a lot different, but it has the exact same effect, basically. So it's more magic involved. I think I can just skip to a slide where it's where the core of it is defined. Yeah, so whenever you send a packet in Radius, you're supposed to, you should have a request authenticator in the end of the packet, meaning you can verify the authenticity of the sender with the shared secret. As it happens, if you're sending the same packet twice, you will also end up at the same request authenticator. So as soon as you change something else, you get a different request authenticator. If you take these two sentences in one, you could say, right, if I receive a packet with the same ID but a different request authenticator, this is not a retransmission. Obviously, something else has changed. So this is not a duplicate. I will just process it as normal, and then I'm done. So the question of duplicates just doesn't exist anymore, just because you do have more bits to identify a packet in the end. It's kind of a cool idea. But then it has the side constraints that you have to have a request authenticator. The original Radius spec did not require this, so you might get an access request having none. For some reason, back in the day, 2 decades ago, people didn't think this is an issue. These days, there is the Radius issues and requested or suggested fixes document, and it says you should still do that also in access requests. If you do, you have a solution here. Of course, we do have a large deployed legacy, and we don't know how many NASs actually do that, even though we say they should do that. So the proposal here is a bit rough around the edges if this is not being supported by the NAS. There is, however, some negotiation here as well. I think there's also status server involved, just to be sure what is coming from the NAS and what you can expect from it. So in the end, yeah, different implementation detail, but solving the same problem. So I guess there's plenty of slides I encourage everybody to read, but without the author himself being there, I guess it doesn't make much sense. So I guess the same applies here. Those who read one document should also read the other documents, and should make up their minds on what they think is the better approach. No?
So Kathleen Moriarty, I think we just need to chat a bit more, right? Because people agreed to read the other draft, and I guess I didn't read the agenda far enough ahead to know that, oh, now we're having a beauty contest. So they agreed to something, not to reading both drafts. Clearly, it's a problem that needs to be solved. It's just a matter of approach. So I don't think we can just volunteer everyone to read every draft, though. Do either of you have any opinions?
Brian Wise, not as well an informed one as I'd like, but I would just say, listening to the presentation, I like the idea of an explicit way of describing the behavior other than implicitly, which is what I think Ellen's draft is doing. There's a beauty to not having to make a protocol change, but I think it's nice to have it explicit what's happening here.
Yeah, my personal opinion is it is semantically changing something without touching the syntax, and that usually catches people by surprise, and that's not usually so nice. But yeah, I guess I read both drafts myself again and think a bit more about it.
Do the chairs have an opinion of preference?
For the time being, I will. So it's, as it was said, I would go for an explicit indication. So using an explicit attribute for that instead of discovering stuff based on existing. But you need to be aware of that. So So for the time being, I would go for the first one, for the previous one.
I like that explanation. So I would say the majority of the room. I think we have consensus. Do you disagree with that logic, either of you? No? All right. I think we have consensus in the room. So it has to go to the list, obviously.
Yes. What we can do is to put it on the mailing list to explain the difference between both drafts, and at least to indicate what would be at least the preference so far, and to see if we can get consensus on the mailing list.
Okay, that actually brings us to the last item, which Alan Koch would present if you were here. So since it's just supposed to be a reminder, I can also remind you, the Radius protocol leaves many things undefined in terms of proxying, how to behave if a downstream server is not responding. Does that mean that next server is not there? Should I actually mark it dead and jump over? Or maybe is it just a few hops down, one server which doesn't relay the messages, and actually the next hop is perfectly fine. So there's much things to be said about Radius proxying. It is not said anywhere in RFC. So Alan has the idea to write this up, but would need some volunteers, I guess, to wrap their heads around the content. So the idea is still there, and if you want to talk to Alan, please talk to Alan. Okay. That's it. Yeah, but this is now the big question for today, I think. We had this agenda item called the future of RADEXT, and to be honest, I have my problems with seeing a big future for RADEXT. As you see right now in the room, we have very few participants coming to the meetings. Usually, if somebody has something to push, there's 3 or 4 people sitting there, coming one time, doing a presentation, and going away again. We don't have much new work to work on. The proposals we get every now and then suggest drastic changes, which would basically turn radius into something else and not radius anymore. And I don't think that's the kind of work we want to do here. So the amount of in-scope work is just not very much. As I've said earlier, in terms of reading drafts for working with last call, this doesn't seem to work either. So I think we have a bit of a problem here. And I think the natural conclusion would at some point be to say, let's finish what we have on the table and call it a day and close down the working group. If you were here earlier this...
Oh, sorry, Brian Wise again. So the one, I think there is, it's valuable to have a place in the IETF where when somebody says, we have this new piece of functionality, we need a radius extension or attribute extension where, we need to get the document out. If this group doesn't exist, where could we do that?
Kathleen Moriarty, Area Director. One option would be to AD sponsor a draft and keep the list open so that we have our core reviewers still.
Yeah, sounds like a good option. I mean, people have a go-to place to start the discussions, and then if it's important enough, somebody will pick it up. So as an extra data point, just a few hours ago, I think it was yesterday or the day before, DIME also had its meeting and decided to do basically the same thing.
And one more option, Ops Area Working Group could adopt it as well.
Yes. Yeah, and as an extra data point, even now that the working group existed, some people came and didn't have the energy to push it through. So I don't think we're closing any doors. Okay, yeah, what I really find a bit sad about this, like I said earlier today, Radius TLS is still experimental. People out there use it. It is useful, but I get these questions about, should we really jump on something that is experimental? So just getting that one on standard spec would be very good to have.
Brian Wise, what would it take? I mean, is there any controversy with the existing experimental definition? Does there anything have to be done besides that's significant?
We had a discussion with Jim Shard. Actually, had slides in like IETF 95 or so. It's not a lot. The thing is that TLS 1.3 is coming up with these crazy 1 round trip time or maybe even 0 round trip time session starts, and that might need a bit of a closer look, because if you have an accounting packet, you can just send it in one shot. Does that really work as it used to? I don't know, but there are no major things missing.
Kathleen Moriarty, AD. So you could just base it on TLS 1.2 to finish up instead of waiting for 1.3 as well. Yeah, so TLS 1.0 and 1.1 have not been deprecated yet. It's an option. How much would waiting for TLS 1.3 hold you up? I know it's just about done, but it was just about done. Yeah, it is just about done. The 0 round trip discussion extended it from the last meeting into this meeting. I expect it'll get published before the next meeting, or be in the RFC editor queue.
Yeah, I mean, given that we don't have any draft yet, I think
okay.
TLS 1.3 will overtake us.
So this one is experimental and published now?
Yeah, since 4 or 5 years, something, yeah.
It's an RFC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I saw that the only point today is that it is noted as experimental, so people are asking why it is still experimental. And
maybe we could do a status change instead of a whole revamp. Is there anything critically wrong with the document as is?
I mean, we use it in Edurome quite heavily, and there's tiny things, like, I mean, a few sentences that might have might be worth having some clarifications on. But
Okay, I'll look into a status change. That might be the right answer. And then a new document for 1.3 when it's, when you're ready for that. But you're not going to jump on 1.3 right away, right? Or is your plan to?
To be honest, I don't even have issues with the thing being experimental myself, so I don't think there's any urgency, and just a status change and doing things in its due time is fine.
Okay, can you guys remind me next week? I'll probably remember, but just in case, send me a nudge. Please nudge.
Okay. So yeah, actually that was my last slide. So I guess we have to confirm all of this on the mailing list, including closing down the working group. If you do have other suggestions, if you have an army of people waiting to come in, please let us know, but I'm not expecting any wonders.
Yeah, just for clarification. So we are saying that we're closing the working group. So, but we are closing the working group after the last remaining document. For instance, we are about to decide about adoption of one of the extended IE solutions. So the guess would be that we go for that if there is a clear agreement on the mailing list that it could be straightforward, and we can push forward the document as soon as possible and close the group after that. Correct? Because on Monday when we had the discussion on DIME, it was done in the other way, saying that we are deciding to closing the group right now, and any new document will be a candidate for AD sponsoring. Any non-working group documents, but just to confirm with you that we're okay with that going in this direction in RADEXT.
I would prefer to finish it up in RADEXT.
Okay.
We might be starting in the, well, so it's a little muddy too, because I'm a security area director and this is an ops working group. Where do you go to get your stuff done? Who's the AD sponsor for you? I think it's easier to just finish this up in the working group, but let's get it done quick. So the faster they can turn that around, I mean, if we can get this through working group last call and through AD review into IESG before the next meeting, I would not complain at all. And then we close before the next meeting. I think we can do that. I'm not the editor though, so it hinges on the editors. Excellent.
Okay. No? Yeah.
Thank you.
Nothing else. Thanks the audience.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who's listening into this, if there are any. So it's been a pleasure. I don't think we're going to meet a lot of times with this working group, so probably this was our last meeting, just finishing up documents. So yeah, have a nice life.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye. I have one. So
Something on the agenda.
yeah, it's quick. It's the so for tomorrow I will jump in the slide.
Yes.
So, I just need to do the first one because my flight is at 3, something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to put your slides in the share slides.
Okay.
So it'll be in the mix of reports for working groups.
Okay, good.
So you'll be right after the security working groups for the related working groups.
Okay, good.
Yeah, less than 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So where are you going now? So, actually, here I am. I'm a bit passing by again just for this.
So, at what time? Oh, okay. So it was a real jump. Let me. I can take care of this if you want.
I know.